Hey everyone, and welcome. As we wait for a few more people to join, feel free just to drop a quick hello into the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. We absolutely love our webinars to be super engaging and really, really kind of here for you. So do say hi, let us know where you're from, and kind of if you're looking to get anything more specific out of the webinar today, we would love to hear it. If you have any questions as we go, do pop them into the Q&A. You'll see everything down below in terms of the chat and the Q&A. We'll get to as many questions as we can. If there are questions in there that someone else has asked that you like the look of, feel free to upvote them. That just helps us prioritize things during the Q&A. If we see something relevant to what we're speaking about as we go through, then we'll pick those out as we go through as well. So yeah, just I think the kind of numbers are settling. Good morning. Yes, it's a very sunny Manchester, Louise. Thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. As well, keep that going in the chat. It's really lovely to see a chat that's really alive and energetic, especially on a Tuesday morning. The sun is definitely helping. So, okay, hello. So I'm Lucy, COO here at Stribe, and I'm really excited to be hosting this session. If you haven't come across Stribe before, we will be your new favorite employee survey software. I'm going to put my neck on the line and say that. We're built to make sure that you don't spend hours in analysis, and our tech makes sure that you can reach everyone, even the most dispersed employees, and maybe the most unconnected as well. So today's webinar, we know HR teams in small and medium-sized businesses wear a lot of hats, and with limited time, budget, and resources, it can feel like there's never enough hours in the day to do everything. I'm sure there's quite a few of you nodding along with me as I'm saying that. That's why today's conversation is all about cutting through the noise and giving you ways and frameworks to help you focus on what actually makes a difference. So you can build an engaged, values-driven workplace, without overcomplicating things. Really just helping you take things back to basics and take a lot of that, those extra kind of tasks out of your to-do list and focusing on what is going to make a difference. I'm joined by Stuart Bradley, founder of Dos. Stuart works with leadership teams to help them embed values and build cultures that actually work in practice, not just look good on a poster. We'll be chatting about things like how to embed those company values without making it a huge project, how to build a culture of clarity, trust, and autonomy, and how to focus on what truly moves the needle and ditch what doesn't. This is going to be a no-fluff, practical conversation, and we really want to hear from you as well. So just another reminder to drop any thoughts and questions in the chat as we go. We'd love to hear your feedback. So if you do find any points interesting or you want us to elaborate on those, let us know in the chat. Stuart, before we dive in, feel free just to tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this work, and what's your take on why company values are such a big deal when it comes to culture and engagement?
Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Well, without giving you my entire life story, I spent a lot of time in design and employee engagement agencies where engagement values, vision, mission values was used as it's almost that new recognition that this is the most valuable ingredient to not only engaging our colleagues, but engaging our customers. So I spent a lot of time in the sort of design, brand, employee engagement space as an employee. Then I set up my own agency doing exactly that, with the strapline that it was brands built on values. So I strongly believe that values are the key ingredient to a successful brand, and that is both with an internal and an external focus, because I believe you've only got one brand. You haven't got an employee brand and a customer brand. And then I was a founder in a software business that dealt squarely with HR teams and equality, diversity, and inclusion teams, helping them to create safe and supportive cultures for everybody. And then, having left both of those businesses, I set up Dos as a consultant just on my own, and with the focus purely on helping, like Lucy said, helping leadership teams to create a strong set of values and then to use them as leverage to help you achieve your goals, because everybody's looking for those small competitive advantages where we can all have better business, business in a better way. And I believe values are the key to doing that. So that's, without me going on forever and ever, that hopefully that's a quick snapshot that gives context to why I'm sat here today.
No, it's perfect, and I completely agree. And I think, um, particularly in small and medium-sized organizations, I think across the breadth of your career, you've seen this, where it can be really hard to know where to start in particular,
Mhm.
and how to make those values stick, like you've kind of said. So I think first of all, I'd really love to dive into more about what you think makes values meaningful, and how you can bring them to life by understanding yeah, a little bit more from you about kind of what sets small businesses, sorry, already tripping over my words. If you've if you're a regular on the webinar, you'll know that I do that. Usually in the introduction. So we've got quite far today. The question is, what sets apart small businesses with a great culture, from those that maybe struggle a little bit to really kind of embed those?
I think the key word there is, small businesses, because in that space, and let's be clear about what we all think of a small business is. I'm going to say in that kind of 10, 20, 30, 40 kind of low double digits kind of small business, you can quickly get lost in the doing, in being productive, dealing, firefighting, being on the tools too much. Um, and what happens is you forget or don't make space for the strategic, the big important stuff that will actually make the business better. And that's where I believe things like values and just being able to sort of be working on the business rather than in the business. When you take that time, that's when you can create better businesses. But it's the trap that all small business owners fall into, especially the smaller teams, where the if your leadership or it's your business or you're the owner or a director, whatever that role that you serve is, you quickly get dragged into delivery rather than being in strategy. And I really love that saying, and it's just a challenge I put to the boards and the leadership teams that I talk to is, directors be directing. I just, if you can get to that space, that's when you can have influence, and that's what will make the business better. Because everyone's just doing, you will kind of just maintain the status quo. You won't grow, you won't move forward, you won't get better or bigger or have better systems and processes. You won't, like you said at the start, move the needle, because all you're doing is doing.
Hmm.
So I think it's that ability to carve some time in the calendar and in your week, in your routine, and make it unmovable and make it that big, urgent, important, strategic space where you actually do the things that will move the needle. And what we're talking about right now, values and engagement, that comes in that space. It doesn't come in the day-to-day doing and productivity space.
Yeah. Am I gonna get on in a little bit to how you can kind of shift away from that? Because I can hear everyone through my screen right now saying, "Oh, that's so lovely." But
Oh, yeah, well, that's
how,
great.
yeah. I know I hear that a lot in my when I go on marketing webinars as well. So we will be doing that. So I think you know like you say, company values, they really do. They help you shape those decisions and the behaviors and the culture. Um, and it can be when you're in that doing mindset and you're in that day to day, it's really, really easy for values to be taken for granted as well and become more of a statement than a lived experience. I think it'd be really interesting just to kind of explore perhaps more of the kind of practical importance of values and the common challenges, just so we can get on the same page about that before heading into some of the more kind of tangible stuff. So I think, where are you seeing at the moment values making the biggest impact on things like engagement and retention? That's a question.
Um,
Or
I,
any
th- and I
examples of that happening in businesses you're working with?
I think it to almost go back a thought into the other question is that it's this idea of values as verbs rather than
Hmm.
values as nouns. So when the values are verbs and they're doing words, not only does it make it easier for leadership, management, whoever it is, to demonstrate it because you can be seen to be doing it. It's not just an ethereal kind of thing that maybe just gets mentioned once a year in reviews or appraisals. So I really like values as verbs. But to sort of talk to that second question, it becomes more measurable when you can see it,
Yeah.
rather than, like I say, rather than it being a feeling or emotion, or just sort of like this idea of it being something that's hard to pin down. So again, it's the simplification of the value so that it can be seen as an action and can be seen demonstrated by everyone at every level. So I think, or I feel that that's really the way that makes values a much more practical and exercisable part of your business.
Hmm. And is that, would you say, I think the next part of my question was around kind of the most common reasons values don't stick, especially in kind of small, medium, or fast-growing businesses. You know, if you've got a fast-moving kind of or a more fluid employee base, maybe it comes back to it's just you just physically can't put them in place because you as a human being can't visualize how that would look.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same answer in reverse. It's like, well, can I see them being actioned? Can I see them being demonstrated at all levels? If not, then I won't believe they're real. Yeah, that's the quickest fall off of any value, and where it will fail is
Mhm.
the idea of all plans are great plans until they come face to face with the enemy, kind of thing. In terms of war and battle and things like that. But it it's about making the value simple and understandable. And if it can be one, two, three simple values in terms of what that word is, then it can be unpacked to mean a lot more. But this idea of it being memorable, and if you're talking about fast turnaround teams where there might be a lot of say like third party sort of freelance or white label kind of employees. Think catering, think hospitality, where you're bringing people onto site for a day or 2 days or 3 days for an event. You've got to be able to communicate, these are the values and the standards I expect from you. It's not try your best, it's that this is what excellent looks like. This is how we're going to demonstrate excellent, through empathy, through attention to detail, through, I don't
Yeah.
know, bringing our best self. It's then making those values, those whatever they are, memorable and then actionable.
Yeah, so like I was being worried for a moment there because I was thinking about our own values, but actually like one of ours is taking ownership. And I think actually that kind of it feels like it demonstrates that quite well in that we can give examples. It's very much like if you're walking past a problem, that's now your problem to own. It doesn't necessarily mean it's your problem to fix, but you've got to catalyze, whatever it is. We're a small business and just take some ownership or if you've got a set of customers you're working with, really take ownership of that relationship and show it all of the care and grace that you would expect back from someone who is supporting you as well. So I feel like we maybe passed that test, but I'm happy to hear feedback.
I like care and grace better than taking ownership, in
Okay.
fairness.
Maybe
A
that's it.
freebie.
Thank you. So I think, yeah, we're talking a lot here about how kind of, even with the best of intentions, values don't always translate into daily behaviors. And I think we're all agreed on the fact that actually having that action focused verb, um, it was verb, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, is
Yes.
for a
Horrible
marketer
when
and
verbs and nouns get mixed up in your head.
terrible. I'm terrible for that. Um, yeah, they don't always translate into daily behaviors, but when there is that kind of verb present, it makes it much easier to communicate. Um, there is a really big challenge though in spotting when things aren't necessarily aligning, whether that's employees feeling disconnected from the values that you have in place, even if they are the most beautifully perfect written ones. Perhaps there's culture drifting, perhaps there's engagement slipping, and it's kind of out with the realms of those values that you've set. So I guess first off, have you got you know, have you got, I know you've worked with teams where this has kind of happened, but what are those first signs, would you say, of HR teams kind of understanding that that kind of thing is happening? And what would the signs be that you would say would point to them needing to reassess that values piece?
Um, there's a couple of thoughts in here. One is maybe not to rush to starting with
Yeah.
values. Maybe the first thing you need to win is trust.
Hmm.
Um, and again, using Stribe as a platform and as an example, if we were just to start by putting out a survey just to measure where employee engagement is, just by how many people are going to answer a survey where we're asking your opinion on the workplace as a whole. Um, if that engagement is low, or if the team, the workforce, however we address the people, the employees within the business, if they're of a mind that is, it doesn't matter what I say, nothing happens, jumping straight to a values project would be wrong. I would say
Okay.
let's start with a simple you said we did project, maybe over a 12-month span that goes, let's earn the trust of our team, especially if it's quite a disparate team and maybe it's over multi-sites or they work remotely a lot. We're going to have to do a lot of, and it can only be little you said we did things, like improving, I don't know, the whatever stocked in the kitchen, or
Yeah.
the ability to recycle fully, or whatever the small things that the team feedback that could be improved, that maybe just gripe with them or upset them on a daily basis. If we can improve those things incrementally, we incrementally increase trust. So then when we rerun the survey monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly, we might have to start at bigger gaps with a disparate team rather
Hmm.
than getting asking survey after survey. We might just want to go survey, you said we did, report on that. Next survey, did the you said we did achieve the things you want to do? And garner that trust and build that thing that then we can begin turning that trust then into an engagement piece, which then grows into a values piece, and take those kind of incremental steps. So that's kind of one part of that answer. The other part around what do we do if things are kind of falling off, if we're not
Hmm.
seeing values demonstrated? Then we need to think about how are we communicating values? Are they being talked about at employment stage, at interview stage, and never mentioned again? Are they only brought up at appraisal and reviews once a year and then never mentioned again? Do they exist in a contract? Or, like you said at the start, are they on a poster in the kitchen, or are they on reception? But then, like I said, they're not demonstrated and they're not seen. Then we've got to ask ourselves, are we communicating the values consistently and persistently? Are we then reinforcing those words by being visibly seen to demonstrate?
Mm.
Do we demonstrate them with all of our suppliers? Do we demonstrate them with our customers? Are they running like the lifeblood that value should be throughout every single touch point of our business? And this is the thing that I agree, I believe really, really strongly about, is that it doesn't sit solely in HR. And I know everyone in this room is going to go, I know this doesn't sit solely in, but it kind of gets pigeonholed into, oh, this is where values sit. It's a kind of it's an employee comms piece, an employee engagement piece. Whereas I believe it's the lifeblood that runs through everything. It's the touch point for all your customers and your colleagues. And if it's not felt at every stage, then that's where we need to start thinking about, okay, how do we consistently and persistently embed these values at every touch point with our colleagues and customers, so it is what we're known for holistically? And that's when
Mhm.
at the top, when I said about you've only got one brand, this is where your colleagues need to get it, and they need to get it and fully understand it so they can deliver it to their customers, or they can behave like that with suppliers, or they can behave like that with visitors to the site. No matter how your business works, you will have touch points across many, many different businesses and sort of conduits who will then go, I had a transaction with that company and they were brilliant. They treated me with care and respect, or whatever care and grace you said earlier,
Yeah.
or like they're really good at taking ownership. They drive it through, but they don't micromanage me. Like, oh, that's a great supplier uh, contractor kind of relationship. I want to work with people like that. I wonder if they've got an opening for me. So it's this idea of, do they exist in every breath, in every transaction? Are they well communicated and reinforced? Are they demonstrated, and then do they run through everything that you do? And if the answer's to no, so you'll see drop off in either engagement or behavior, or a lowering of standards, then it's okay. Then how do we as leaders, as the ambassadors of these values, how do we then bring them to the forefront again and make them
Mhm.
part of every single transaction that they do during their working day with us?
That's awesome. And yeah, Faruza in our chat has just said we run employee recognition program recognizing colleagues who demonstrate the behaviors and enablers associated with values. And that is exactly actually what we've seen. I really love that actually. And we've seen a customer using shout outs on Stribe in a very similar way. They have, and I can't remember what their values spell out, but they've got about five of them, and they spell out a word. And they encourage employees to get a shout out in at least each of the values across their year. So they're really pushing to demonstrate, and then they go through to kind of a staff awards. And it may seem like quite a simple kind of mechanism there, but actually it's really powerful. And they said they've noticed a huge change in the way that their values are lived using that.
I love that, and just to speak to that as an example of how you bring the values to life. There's a little story about, like thank you cards. So you could spend,
Mhm.
I don't know, 100, 200 pound on getting 1,000 or 500 thank you cards printed that you can give to, as well as doing the shout outs on Stripe, obviously, but
Yeah.
that you can give to someone, that so they've got something transactional and
Yes.
physical that they can hold, and they can sit it on their desk or on the dashboard of their van or on their workstation, wherever it is that they occupy. And they've got a thank you card, and it says, "Thank you, Jeff." Like everybody's Jeff in my world, by the way. Um, like, "Thank you, Jeff. You demonstrated such and such a value by helping other Jeff with that project or that problem, or moving that bit of litter,
Hmm.
or clearing up that mess." That, because it's spotted, and it could be a postcard, it'd be a thank
So
you card,
nice.
small little business card, something you put in your pocket, something you take home and just go, "Oh, look what Jeff gave me today," kind of thing. If we've got any Jeff in the chat, I don't, I don't know. This wasn't for you. It's just my generic catch-all for everybody at work. But um, the comparison of spending a couple of £100 on thank you cards versus my friend had an agency, and his way of saying thank you to the team was to take them to Amsterdam for 3 days just before it was in December. And I was like, mate, you're spending thousands to take a really tired, stressed, overstretched team that really, really, like worked really super hard away at Christmas. You're kind of just making them tireder. I
Yeah.
know it feels like, but I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving. It's like, this is kind of when maybe sometimes as a business owner, you think, if I spend a lot of money on something, that equates to gratitude. But it's the £200 spent on thank you cards would have got more gratitude than taking your team away for 3 days in Amsterdam, and getting really, really tired and worn out and away from home at Christmas. It's like, I just want to be at home with my kids, kind of thing is what I wanted, and my bed. But do you see
Oh,
the difference between thoughtfulness and money? It's, you'll get less gratitude for more spend, possibly.
yeah. And we have a little phrase that I think works both ways. That's um it's just totally got out of my head. Um creating moments like little. little moments that mean so much is like kind of our phrase. And I guess that works both ways. It's recognizing those little moments, but also showing them that, by doing that the postcard. And Farouza, who mentioned about her employee recognition programs, actually just come back and said that they do the hand signed thank you card. And they also get a badge to wear on their lanyard, which I absolutely love.
Yes.
And Rebecca said that they also do that with their Be More shout outs. There's lots of people. So I've just asked everyone else if they've got things they want to share because I absolutely love hearing the ideas. It's such a fab thing to be able to hear what everyone's doing. It's very,
Yeah.
very positive.
The lanyards and the pin badges on the lanyards works really well. And then you can get different colored lanyards maybe as you move through the things. And then the badges count towards employee awards at the end of the year. Yeah, perfect.
There's also, and it's such small things. It doesn't take a huge amount of budget, and I think that really speaks back to that small business mindset. Of these little things that people, if you are feeling like your values, you've kind of got over the bigger problems, or you don't have the big problems that we've been talking about, but it is just about finding little ways to embed those values. There's lots of ideas in the chat and that we've spoken about, and it's small budget little things. It doesn't need to be these big grand, like you say, trips,
No.
money, um,
Acknowledge,
whatever.
acknowledge that positive demonstration of a value in the moment, right there.
Yeah.
And it's that modern thing, isn't it? I see you. I see
Yeah.
you do it. Well done.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have a postcard to hand, make the time to say it. Just go up to
Hmm.
someone and with sincerity say, I saw what you did there. It's fantastic. Thanks for doing that. Keep it up. People love all people want
Yeah.
is recognition. It's a really simple thing, beyond turning up and getting an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. People want to be recognized for the effort they put in. And
Hmm.
if we can get back to that level of a culture of recognition and then build from there.
Yeah. And it's okay to recognize people as well. I think I've been doing a really amazing leadership course recently, and I don't know. I think one of the leaders, Emma, was signed up to organize today. But I don't know if she's here, but hi, Emma. Little shout out to you if you are. But we've been talking a lot about it's leadership, so it's a lot around feedback and why we all kind of. I'm sure you've all got that icky feeling going across your shoulders now when you're thinking about having to give feedback, but a lot of it we've learned is kind of you just do it in the moment and learn the right structure for you to be able to have that conversation. And part of that is around you are allowed to give good feedback, like, and you should do it more. And I think a lot of the leaders in the groups are feeling that like, okay, but does that open us up to like pay conversations? Does that open us up to promotion? How do you balance those two things? And I know we're going into another kind of topic, so we'll probably not delve too deep into that. But I think the crux of the conversation came back to just tell people when they're doing a good job, because you will, it's easy to structure pay conversations and promotion conversations in a different way. Just human to human, people need to know that they're doing a good job, and that you value them, and that you appreciate them spending the time on the work that they're doing. And then, just because they're paid to do something doesn't necessarily, I hear that line a lot. Oh, well, they're paid to do it, so why would we say well done for it?
Mm.
But yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, so I don't know if you wanted to add something to
Uh,
that.
Solely that I had this exact conversation the other day, and
Yeah.
someone said, "Well, will that open me up to pay?"
Hmm.
People ask for more pay. I was like, people can ask for more pay anyway. That
Yeah.
conversation's coming down the road. You're not stopping that. Let's just be do it when we are having that conversation. Let's be having it in a really positive. Do you know what? You did X, Y, Z. You've collected however many pin badges, or you've got so many cards. Do you know what? Yeah, absolutely. You deserve it,
Yeah.
because that makes that conversation so much easier rather than someone coming and going, "Can I have more pay?" And you're like, "Well, I haven't noticed you do anything good," kind of thing. That it empowers the employee to come to you with proof that they deserve it, and that makes it a much easier transaction and an easier
Yeah.
conversation to have. And again, like you say, if all of these things are set in regular appraisals and reviews anyway, where the employee and the team member can have a conversation around, these are the goals, these are what I want to achieve, this is the money I want to earn. You go, okay, well then we'll set you a progress plan or a development plan to get you there. And along the way, let's think about what values can be demonstrated, and that it gives people the clear trajectory
Hmm.
as well as a little bit of autonomy within a pre-agreed structure to go at it. It's like this. Humans are generally pretty simple beasts. Just like,
Yeah.
trust, give me autonomy, give me clarity, let me get on with my work.
Yeah. If that's the one thing I've learned about working with people, leading people over the years, it's structure above all else. For me anyway, in the way my brain works, I found that the easiest, if I know I've given them the structure and like you say, the clarity, whether that's aligned to values or the business objectives, it just helps everyone feel good about what they're doing. Going back to that one brand piece, something popped into my head there, which I found quite interesting is I'm sure we've all seen the news recently, and there's the X, Twitter, kind of Elon things bubbling around. And Mind, the mental health charity, actually decided to come off Twitter. And they made an announcement about it, which I felt I really respected. I'm a marketer as my background, and I really respected that. They kind of explained that, they stand for diversity, they stand for support, they stand for all of these things which they felt like didn't align to them being on that channel anymore. I could see them living out exactly what you were saying there in terms of your values, and they were recognizing that those values need to be lived across every element of the business. But I found it really interesting that a lot of people gave them backlash about it, and it wasn't the paid bots. It was real people giving them, you should be everywhere. You should be supporting people everywhere. And um, I found it really interesting that that kind of way of thinking hasn't necessarily, um, yeah, they didn't kind of get on board with that. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I, I see your point, and it without wandering into the the Elon Musk debate,
politics.
which rules everyone's conversation these days. Every decision you make should be governed by your values. They are your rudder,
Hmm.
and they will stop you getting dragged. If we think of our trajectory as a boat or as a walk, across, just as a journey, the values will stop you getting distracted and taking the tangent turns that you didn't necessarily want to take, and will stop you getting where you actually wanted to get to. So yeah, think about it as, and I'd support Mind wholeheartedly, that whole debate and the kind of the noise around Musk and X would detract from Mind's values of, and I don't know their values, but I'd imagine it's around honesty and healthiness and like a freeness of and clarity of mind that I don't see in that hellstorm that is X now.
Yeah.
I've come off it because, again, it doesn't align with what I want to do. And
No.
equally, if you think of the commercial impact, that's one less pair of eyes on Twitter and on their advertisers. But equally, I wouldn't buy a Tesla car, because of the
Mm.
association. And if you look at the statistics, the sales drop off since Musk's trajectory to where he is now in the USA and his recent actions, there's been a drop off in sales. So if your values and your actions are in contrast or in conflict, that
Mm.
will have a direct impact on the bottom line. So maybe, actually, I know I said avoid Musk as a point, but that's I'm going ahead in our conversation now. But if you aren't true to your values, yeah, how can you be an environmental brand, which is basically what Tesla is, and then align yourselves with oligarchs and
Mm.
oil and drilling and the sort of environmental global warming denial that sits with Trump's politics? The two can't occupy the same space. So that shows that there's not that congruence in his value set. So customers will separate themselves from
Yeah.
it. So lack of congruence. So you say you're one thing, but you behave in another way. That will affect employees. That will affect colleagues and customers, and they will disengage.
Hmm. And it's interesting as well because you, um, I think we act sometimes, just to go back a point on what you're saying, um, we say, oh, the organization or the company I work for or whatever, and it's kind of almost separate from who we are as people. And we aren't necessarily living our organization's values. I don't think that's healthy to completely always like, your values are yours and the organizations are separate. You can definitely demonstrate them and live them, but you have your own values. But what I always find interesting is you, as Stuart, has made a set of decisions based on your values. And we don't necessarily advocate for decisions in our businesses and organizations we work for in that same way, particularly if we're seeing the way that organizations' values are sitting, and maybe there's decisions being made and we're not checking those against those values. And in the same way that we would advocate for our individual choices, we don't necessarily do that in meetings, when those decisions are being made. And I find that interesting. We see it, we do quite a few tenders and we see it there. Tenders is probably the only place where we see it really kind of saying, particularly for the NHS actually, and some kind of public sector, they'll say, these are our values. How do you help us support those? And it might be around sustainability. It might be
Mhm.
around Suffolk County Council. I'll give them a shout out. They did an amazing process there saying, we want to support vulnerable children and social impact. How do you do that? Or how would this contract do that? And yeah, I find, it can be so embedded, but then other times it's not. So I don't know if you've got any tips for people that are kind of feeling or seeing that in their organizations at the moment.
Less hints or tips, but more the employee engagement and the traction of values should be something measured at board level. And those discussions should be happening at board level. And when decisions have to be made in a business, which they do, obviously, every single day. But the big ones, when they're happening at director kind of level, C-suite level, the values should be the measure against whether that is right or wrong for the business, not what's right or wrong in that immediate moment in terms of, I don't know, whether it's bottom line or supplier contracts, whatever the issue that's being discussed.
Hmm.
The one truth that it all should come back to is, does this align with our values? Are we making this decision with congruence and consistency and persistency in line with our values? And if it's not, then it's the wrong decision. This is it almost is like a playbook,
Yeah.
so when we get to every stage, we can go, right, is this the right thing to do? Right, check against our values. Yes, check against our values. No. And if we can use them and this is what I mean, when it's every single day, every single minute, it's not once a year at an appraisal or a review. It's every single day in everything we do.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. And I think, we've kind of digressed a touch, but just to take it back a little, I think
Inevitable, wasn't it?
it was
We were
always going
both
to
like, oh,
happen. It was always going to happen.
yeah.
But yeah, so I think, just I guess I'll take a minute just to remind everyone if you do have questions, Stuart and I are both here to answer them, whether that's on values or surveys. So we've got the Q&A portion coming up. So please don't hold back. This is your time to use us for what you need. So please do pop those questions in the Q&A box. But I think just to take it back right to the beginning, we've identified there's a problem. It might be a wider values piece. It might be more of an employee engagement piece. I know those two are, usually a little bit hand in hand. Say we're starting from scratch. I've sat through this webinar. I'm really kind of emboldened to go and create some change. We've talked a lot about how all the HR folks sat on our webinar today have such limited time and resource. So keeping that in mind, kind of, if we are starting from scratch, what would be those 2 or 3 steps maybe that you would start with, that you would recommend would be a good place to kind of to start?
Um, Speaking from my own personal point of view, as a consultant, if I'm going into a small business, and these are steps that anyone can follow, so I'm not disengaging or separating. I'm just saying what I do is I'd run a survey, a very simple survey with a simple set of questions. What I'm then, sorry, I don't know if you know, my dog's just come back from her walk and she's
Oh,
barking everybody. Uh, so apologies if Holly the dog is coming through on the speakers. My train of thought, I would then analyze those results. If I'm short of time or it's a large amount of data, I would use any of the available AI platforms to like really crunch that further than obviously the results in the survey that Stribe puts out. I would then be looking for common themes that would, from my team, be telling me what behaviors, values, things that are important to them. And that might just give me a very simple kind of rudimentary set of values around, I don't know, let's say authenticity, respect, empathy, like there's a certain amount of words that come to the fore regularly that are easy words that people can understand and relate to. And I'd maybe just use those in the initial value set to get the wheels turning. And it could be then after 3 years or so, then we start going, right, then we start bringing in, I don't know, like a consultant or someone like me that might just go, well, let's just put a little bit more gloss and shine on these, make these something that are a bit more aspirational or a bit more memorable, or that are going to achieve a bit more cut through against other corporate values. Because, like, just to make this point a little bit clearer, like when you look at companies like Patagonia, their values cut through so loud and clear, they actually distance themselves from all the other outdoor brands. No other outdoor company, in terms of boots, shoes, coats, all that stuff, t-shirts, surfwear, all the stuff that they do, is getting anywhere near Patagonia or getting the news coverage. So like that value set brought to life through a set of books and publications and very big level corporate actions have achieved huge cut through for them. Let's not be trying to start at Patagonia level, I guess is the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Let's start with a set of 3 to 5 words that are memorable, that are real, that are authentic, that have come from the team. Because you said this earlier, that your personal values aren't necessarily the corporate or the company's values, and you might be the person who started the business, but then you've employed 10 people, so there's a shared set of values rather than the owner's values that you can't say their values and then sort of impose them upon
Yeah.
people. You kind of it has to be done as a democracy. And then obviously as leadership team, you shape that and refine that and make it how you want it to be a measure for your business. But yeah, to answer your question, that's what I do. I do a very simple survey, get a set of simple, usable, understandable values together, very, very in a quite quick format there, and then start applying those. And that could be done 6 months, a quarter, 6 months, a year. You can almost chunk down those 3 steps into quarters. And I think that gets them into play very, very quickly. But authenticity is the key word to that, and involving the team so they feel like it's something they've had a voice and a hand in, rather than something that's been given down to them from board level or leadership level, or that's come out of the HR department. It's got to be sort of fulfill from the people, for the people, of the people.
That's employee feedback really does run the world, hey?
It does.
I think one thing as well, these surveys, I think we do these day in, day out, and I'm sure, I know you do as well, Stuart. And one thing we see a lot is people kind of overcomplicating it. They kind of go, oh, values, oh, this is like, we've talked a lot about how it needs to be lived and breathed through the whole business. And as soon as those kinds of words get spoken, the complexity cloud just kind of comes down. And I think people kind of think it's got to be this perfect project. It's got to be so. But actually, what we see is the most effective surveys, I don't know, maybe your clients are different, are 4 or 5 questions. 3 or 4 of those questions might be focused around loosely around themes that have come through. If you're already running some sort of employee feedback survey, employee annual survey, it'll be roughly what has been coming out of those. And then a couple of questions that are much broader that draw out anything else that's coming, that's kind of bubbling through your organization. And that just pulls any other feedback through. So I know we had a customer recently we did this with, and they had absolutely no idea that that recognition piece that we've just spoken about was so needed by employees.
Mhm.
They were crying out for recognition. Interestingly, the managers didn't think so, which I think you're really not so surprised to hear.
Mm.
But yeah, when they looked at it, that feedback piece really and that recognition piece really came through. And that was something they were able then to progress with quite easily. I don't know if that's the kind of thing that you're working on at that starting point, but that's kind of what we're seeing. I always like to caution, like, don't overcomplicate your surveys. You absolutely don't need to.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And again, I really like the way that so I use Stribe for just consultancy surveys. I don't just use it just for employee engagement surveys. So I would use it because I love that pulse check and then text field response ability. So people can just go, that between 1 and 5, 1 and 10, whatever the scale is, and then have the ability to sort of almost embellish that feedback if they want to. But if
Mhm.
not, the pulse check is valuable. The open text field's valuable. It gives you that holistic feedback. And unless we're, like you say about managers, there is a certain amount of head in the sand, or just don't tell me, I don't want to hear it kind of. But once you sit down and start thinking about it, you can put together probably 5 to 10 questions that will be, one, the kind of things that are a problem.
Mhm.
Two, the next 3 questions are kind of the kind of things you can fix quite quickly. And then the next three, I've got to 9, but yeah, let's pretend there's 9. The next three are the sort of the aspirational, where we want to be in 1, 2 years kind of thing
Yeah.
as a business. So immediate, mid, long-term kind of questions. And that gives you the ability again to go back to that you said we did kind of feedback, to take action. And
Mhm.
again, you can do some quick fixes, then you can put some stuff in place for the middle term, some stuff in place for the longer term. And for heaven's sake, please communicate it via all the platforms, via everything that's available to you, just to make sure that it gets to the people. Because I love this saying, and forgive me because it's a bit of a cliche, but cliches are cliches because they're true. But the greatest myth about communication is believing that it happened.
Mhm.
And in every single part of your life, we'll sit down and we'll talk to our partners in the evening and you go, I told you that yesterday. And they go, no. You're like, it was only me and you. We spoke about it. And they go, no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. Well, and they'll no. And then because they were looking out the window, because
Mm,
we were getting distracted looking for yellow cars so you can give each other a dead arm. Do you play
yeah.
that game when you're driving?
Yeah, when I was a kid,
Yeah.
not so much anymore. My husband's colorblind, so it's not it's not an
Oh,
accessible
that's fair.
game.
No, I'd do that more.
Oh. Take
But do
advantage.
you see what I mean? There'll always be something that'll distract you from the actual
Yes.
communication that's happening. So if we do these surveys, when we do these surveys and we have actions from them, we heard you, we're doing this, and then update the updates. And there's never a danger of over communication here.
No, and I think the rule I live by when it comes to employee communication is it's quite similar to what you were saying, but it's just assume that 10% of people have absorbed what you've said. There'll always be, if you're in a team of 10, that one employee, or if you're a team of 100, 10 employees that sit and diligently read their emails and, we love them, but most people don't. Most people will skim, move on. Um, some people won't even open their emails. Some maybe don't have emails. So you've got to assume that 10%, that's always what I kind of say. So you've got to work on other channels and other kind of reminders, etc., that will help you get to a majority at least. And I really love that tip as well, with the surveys about making sure you have some questions in there that are easy to kind of create change from, and that are kind of focused around things that our employees are wanting to see change on, or that you can really easily control. Just as, again, taking it back to the start of that webinar, you're talking about trust and building that trust and showing employees that you're going to really live that feedback. But yes, that's that one rule for us, is definitely communicate, 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 especially around surveys, because you will find your response rates drop significantly if you're not doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
and
yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say that the other thing around communication is just, again, it's a cliche, but it's that point that when you have just become sick of saying it, of repeating yourself, that's when the audience have just started listening.
Hmm.
So you've got to kind of get over yourself and get into that space of over communicating, and then over communicate, because yeah, there's no danger of over communicating. There's only a danger of under communicating.
Yeah, it's a good lesson to live by. Okay, so I guess for the last kind of 10-ish, 8 minutes, we've talked about kind of defining values. We've talked about kind of getting through that initial phase, but how do you know that they're really working? We talk a lot about kind of measuring values, measuring culture, but it can actually feel quite difficult to do. I know we've kind of touched on it with making sure that there's quite tangible questions in there and things like that. But it does feel like it's got the potential to create a lot of extra work. But it's an important piece of that puzzle. I really liked what you said earlier about how it's okay. I mean, you didn't say this exactly, but values can change, and that's okay. What the things that you set out initially, if you are doing a bit of a reset or a reevaluation, that's okay. That may serve you perfectly for those kind of first couple of years. After that, you may want to reevaluate, and that's okay. So, what's kind of the best way to track that and start to kind of understand if they're truly embedded, and I guess maybe if there's time for change?
Um, it's about 17 questions in
I
there, Lucy.
know, I'm very good at that. I'm sorry.
Um, to start at the top, it's report on it.
Yeah.
Work out how it goes into your board pack, into your monthly reports, and from different businesses and obviously in different sectors, it's gonna manifest differently. But employee engagement is one measure, employee retention another measure, churn another measure,
Mm.
customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, like complaints. Where are we seeing complaints? If complaints are at delivery point, where the product or the service meets the customer, then we've got to do some really focused work there. If sales are dropping off or deliveries are failing or we're getting returns, like what what are our indicators? Kind of like, what's the pain point and where are we seeing it? Are we seeing a drop off in sales? Are we seeing an increase in returns? However it manifests, and then go, right, so what's missing at that particular point of our business? So returns is a great example, where it means that the person who's creating the product hasn't got enough time to make that product right. And I've seen this in manufacturing a lot, where they were getting measured on output,
Mhm.
not quality. So the idea in that business was to go, I'm going to give you more time to get it right. Yeah. So instead of all that person even being paid a bonus or an incremental sort of performance related thing on the amount of output, instead we're going to measure and reward you on the amount of returns.
Mm.
So Lucy, whatever you're manufacturing, whatever goes out to customers, if you can get to 100% no returns, then that means you're doing your job well, rather than me measuring the amount of widgets that you're producing in a day or an hour or whatever, or per shift. So are we measuring the right things? And then how do we relate that to our business? And if you're producing, I don't know, a precision, high quality, high standard widget, then we want it to be customer satisfaction and minimal returns, minimal, because that costs customer satisfaction, that costs logistics, that's you having to go back to your workstation again and produce it. So something in our value set, because if we're saying our values are quality, customer satisfaction, then we're not actually actioning that by putting the member of our team under pressure to produce 100 widgets in an hour. So it's you can kind of almost measure backwards and go, well, what's the problem behind the problem behind the problem, and then how do we work out how to report on that and make it align with our values, because we can improve the performance of almost any area of our business by making sure the values are being actioned through it. And it shouldn't just be retention, recruitment. It should be sales. It should be how we deal with our suppliers. It should be how we pay our bills through accounts payable. It should, every single part of the business should have values running through them. And this is what I mean about touch points, is every single touch point, when that's done well and we measure it and report on it at board level in terms of either values being seen, like that should be I want that in my surveys. Are you seeing this value brought to life? Are you seeing this value brought to life? Can you give me an example of it? So if you've given a thank you card on Wednesday and you do the survey on a Friday in the open text field, I saw Jeff doing XYZ. It was brilliant because he brought this value to life for this customer. Great. So again, that's going up to board. It's being reported on, and it might be a percentage. It might be a number. It might be actually like these are a set of quotes of positive things we've seen this month, this quarter, however often we're reporting. But give it that level of importance. It's the same amount of employee engagement and value measurement should be given the same amount of importance and airtime at board level reporting as income, sales, invoices raised, debtor days, whatever the other bits we report on at board level. It should be given the same value and the same status. And then once board and leadership take it seriously and they want to see what it's reported on, then then it gets driven through the business. So I like it starting at boardroom leadership, directors, founders, owners, wherever that top table is. That's where I like to see it reported on, and that gives everyone the sense and the belief that it's important and it's measured and it's going through every, like I keep saying touch point. Sorry, I have to get tasered
No,
next.
it's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. And I think the thought that I had in that when you were saying that was you can't achieve any of those things without your people anyway. So I think it's just that reminder that your sales targets, your production targets, whatever it is that is getting spoken about at board level, just because you can assign a pound coin to it, it often elevates it above other things, but actually you can't achieve those without your people. So, it's just trying to come back to that. We only have a minute, so this might be unfair to ask you, but a lot of this kind of speaks back to that resilience piece that I know you're really seeing and pushing this year. So I don't know if you had a final kind of word of wisdom just to round off the webinar. We can run over a little bit because we are going to be sending out the recording for anyone that needs to drop off for any 11 o'clocks. But how can small teams kind of build resilience for both their people and their culture when we're talking about some big problems here. So are you seeing anything that we can share with the team?
Well, you're totally right. Resilience is my word of the year. But I suppose the point behind that is that none of this is easy. So you have to get that value set. So you have to believe in it. So this is about carving out time, making it a priority, working out, like Lucy, you said, we've all got full weeks, we've all got full calendars, we've all got full diaries. We appreciate that. There has to be something in there that's less of a priority. So this is idea like this is going to be your most important thing. So something has to fall out of the bottom. So again, it's looking at those things that you do in a week. What's the one thing that can go or be delegated or be automated or given to AI or something that gives you 2 hours, 3 hours a week where you can go, this is important, this is strategic, I'm going to get this to my team, I'm going to communicate it, and I'm going to do it consistently and persistently with authenticity and with all of my behaviors being congruent with those values that we said we're going to work to. And that takes resilience, because it is hard to do it all the time, because it is easy just to go back to doing and being busy.
It is,
So,
it is. And I think
yeah,
as well, having that framework of the values that's agreed at board level, that that everyone is aware is going to be cascading through the business, that piece of work becomes, it's much easier to point to it then. And I think it takes less energy to defend what you're doing, which I think is where I see it
yeah,
for a lot of HR folk. That's where their resilience starts to drop, is when they feel like they're constantly having to defend things. And I think, if you've got that board buy and you've got that framework, it's very easy then to point to it, and it removes that personal element and that energy that's being spent on that argument.
yeah. It's not a personal decision, it's an organizational decision. And this is something that we've decided as a business we're going to report on and value. So,
Yeah.
yeah, putting value against your values, and that
Yeah.
value time, by the way.
Which we have very sadly run out of today. I think Stuart and I could keep speaking for another few hours. Um, yeah, it's been so lovely, Stuart. Was there anything else you wanted just to add?
No, I'm just grateful.
Anything?
I'm grateful for you inviting me, and grateful for everyone who's spared their time. I'm sorry if I waffled. Sorry if I went off tangent. Sorry if I went off topic and went on a tangent. Thank you for
No,
having me. I care so much about this, and it does drag me off in different areas of passionate argument.
you're awesome. There was so much knowledge shared there, and we're truly grateful. Everyone is. I know they are. Stuart, I'm sure his inbox is open on LinkedIn. If you guys have questions, I know we haven't had any today come through. Oftentimes that's just because people don't want to ask in a public forum. That's totally okay. We respect that. Stuart and I will both have our LinkedIn links within the follow-up email that you'll get with the recording, and we're more than happy to take any questions you have there. So please do make the most of that kind offer from Stuart. And yeah, just to say thank you so much. We love tangents. That's usually where the gold is when we kind of wend our way through these conversations. So we really appreciate Stuart. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much to the audience too. It was so lovely to see some chatter and to hear everyone's ideas and the things that you're putting in practice for kind of that employee recognition and values-led initiatives as well. So it's really, really lovely to hear those today. You've all been wonderful. Like I say, we will pop you the LinkedIn links in the follow-up emails to come. That'll be in the next day or so. So do keep your eyes peeled for that. If you have any questions at all, do reach out to both of us. We are more than happy to help. And if you're interested in hearing more about Stribe and our survey software, please do get in touch and we can get a quick call arranged with our friendly team. Stuart, I'll catch up with you on an email after this. And thank you to everyone that's joined us. Have an amazing day, and we will see you all very, very soon. Bye.